Tabb Group estimates that there are $65 trillion of tail risk still associated with uncleared swaps out in today's market. That tail is going to extend for another 30 years. Where does that risk lie and how are folks managing it? I'm joined today by Satyam Kancharla, Chief Strategy Officer for Numerix. Satyam, where does this risk lie and what are people in the industry doing to manage it?
So Alex, this is the 12% of the OTC portfolio that's outstanding. It is not cleared, it is not clearable. And in terms of where it lies both on the sell side and the buy side, obviously, because all of these transactions are derivative transactions. They're swaps typically, and they are between, let's say, insurance companies and banks, or pension funds and banks, asset managers in some cases, corporates. And these are really bespoke hedges that have been put in place. In some cases, they're being put in place now. They're long dated in nature. They're very hard to clear. So you really have to manage them.
Are folks managing it today? What's the optimal mechanism for managing this much risk extending that far into the future?
What has been shown recently in the last several years is market risk is not the only risk you have. There is counterparty risk, there is funding risk, there is liquidity risk, and these are the risks that are largely ignored at this point.
Isn't that sort of taken into consideration with sort of enterprise level risks or CVA? Doesn't CVA try to manage this risk for the tail of sort of these bespoke solutions?
Yes, CVA is definitely center stage because of whatever has happened over the last several years. What has happened after 2008 is people knew about market risk and they understood market risk. But when it comes to counterparty risk, a whole new set of measures have come out, which is CVA, which is counterparty valuation adjustment, potential future exposures, various types of limits, and various types of quantitative metrics on counterparty risk. On the other hand, very few institutions, except the top tier institutions, except 5 or 6 institutions worldwide, have actually implemented this.
I mean, CVA, from my understanding, is an extremely complicated set of calculations that cover across the gamut all asset types, looking backwards and forwards. If only 5 or 6 of the largest institutions are sort of using CVA as a tool, what are the folks who have this outstanding sort of risk supposed to do? These are insurance companies, some corporates, maybe tier 2 or tier 3 brokers. How can they get on top of this challenge and make sure that they're not caught in the tail?
Well, the methodologies are established, but as you point out, it's a very complicated problem technologically, from a data standpoint, and there are various intricacies that are involved, which tier ones or some of the top banks have been able to do, but not any of the other institutions. And typically today, a whole bunch of institutions are looking to solutions outside, looking to vendor products, for example, that could come in and help in these specific areas, because it's no longer acceptable to not have a handle on your counterparty risk.
What is the challenge with doing the poor man's version of CVA as opposed to the more advanced version?
So Alex, there are 2 types commonly of CVA. One is the standardized approach, which is simpler, it's not simple. And there's the advanced approach, which is more quantitative, requires a lot more data. Now, the chief problem with doing the simpler version or the standardized version is, first of all, you're not going to save on regulatory capital. The standardized approach is very, very conservative, so that means you might be posting millions or hundreds of millions of additional capital that you wouldn't have to do if you were using the advanced approach. The other part of this is simply about mispricing versus the market. So just as you want to price your book correctly against the market in any asset class, in any type of financial instrument, using the simpler approach will misprice against the market, will misprice against the more advanced institutions that are able to implement the advanced methodology.
So the advanced methodology is a much more, I guess, a rapid turnaround. The data is much fresher. You can then get more accurate sort of evaluations of what your risk positions are. And there's a competitive advantage to be gained for anyone who is capable of sort of going the extra step.
Exactly.
Is there a turnkey solution, a vendor solution out there that can do CVA on the cheap without having to sort of climb this very difficult mountain of very complicated calculations and really significant methodology change?
Well, there are a number of components of a calculation like CVA that have been productized and that are now available from vendor companies. On the other hand, there are also data issues and cultural issues and risk culture issues that, of course, an institution has to deal with.
This must be very difficult for institutions because most of the institutions use multiple analytics shops.
Yep.
They have multiple platforms. Each desk or each product has its own vendor solution or own bespoke developed solution.
Yes.
How can folks get on top of this and sort of bring all these varying sets of data together to get one sort of single point of truth?
The real challenge is to sort of defragment at an analytic level and at a data level all of this information and analytics that an enterprise has, and really to bring that together into a central environment, perhaps an internal cloud or an external cloud, and then run various analytics on top of that.
Does it usually sort of an ombudsman, one individual or one desk responsible for that?
That's correct. That's correct. And what we're seeing as a result is some new titles appearing, some new roles appearing. For example, around architecture. What led to this stage is the organic development that has taken place over the last 30 years. So that sort of development is not going to address and solve the issues we have at hand. It's really someone owning this and driving this.
With $65 trillion of outstanding notional and OTC derivatives still out there on the books, it's important that we remember the tail can't wag the dog in this situation. Getting on top of this challenge is going to be a primary concern for everyone in the marketplace, especially considering the fact that these trades aren't going away. Satyam, thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Alex.